Hello and welcome to the Feminine Subconscious podcast. I am so excited today to introduce my good friend Larry Michel, and he is known as the Love Shepherd. He's the founder of the Institute of Genetic Energetics and the 4answers.com, which I highly recommend that you go to as soon as you can to do the free quiz that you can do to find out what your genetic energetics are. And he also has some other really amazing products on there. But has just written a book. It's coming out. We're gonna announce it, gonna learn more about it. But what I love about Larry is he has such kind of a scientific, logical approach to what relationships are, and we just both are obsessed with relationships, and so we just geek out all the time. And so I was like, Larry, let's just get on and make a podcast because everyone would want to listen to the conversations that we have, because they're fascinating and we bring up a lot of interesting things. And relationships are just complicated and yet so simple. And I know everyone has them on the planet. So this is going to be a really fun podcast to listen to. Welcome and welcome, Larry. So glad you're here.
Thank you. This is really fun. I've been wanting to do this with you for a while because it's true. For those that haven't heard us, we do geek out, and it's what's really cool. I remember we were on a mastermind the other day, and Paige just gets going, and I'm just listening, going, "This is awesome." Right? And then we just kind of kept going back and forth with each other. It's like when you think you know everything, you don't know. And you still don't know this one thing that can happen at any moment that can be transformational, right?
Yeah. So, Larry, first of all, just tell us about your book.
So, through the Institute of Genetic Energetics over the last, well, I don't know, almost 20 years now, I have worked with primarily women, like well over 100,000 women that were single and looking for relationships. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I want to move from working with women to working with couples.
Mhm.
Because ultimately, what I've always wanted to do is help people find the most beautiful, glorious, connected, wonderful relationships, right? Like, how do we find our one or our one for the moment or whatever it might be? But how do we find someone that we really can connect with that doesn't throw us for a loop at some point or another? And so I went and I started working with couples. And I realized working with couples, almost the only time that a couple would contact you to work for them is if they were in trouble, if there was something wrong, like something's broken, something's not working, we're not sure whether we should be in this relationship or not, or you name it. There are endless number of reasons why things can be a little bit off, right? And need some help. And so then I even relabeled what I was doing to love restoration coaching, right? So I figured I was helping restore the love back into the relationship. And then in this last few years, I just been noticing, and thank you, Internet, for making it blatantly obvious, that there were just endless people saying that we can bring your relationship back. We can fix this. We can, how all these different things that were all aimed at repairing broken relationships. And it just felt necessary and something was a bit off. Then I started researching what do people believe about relationships, and there's this whole body of work that talks about, well, every relationship starts with chemistry and there's this infatuation phase, and then it goes into this like oh shit phase, like everything is going wrong, and then you figure out how to get through that, and eventually by the time you get to the end, you're kind of into mission, vision, purpose. And there's these phases, and I'm going, no, that I don't think that's right at all. I mean, if we're looking at what a major part of the population might be doing today, that might be correct. But is that really what we should be or could be doing as humans? And I kept getting the answer, no, it's not. And so the book that we just completed was initially brought to me. I didn't even plan on doing it, Paige. It was like someone brought it to me and said, Larry, you need to do this. And I went, I don't know if I'm supposed to. And then I couldn't get away from it. I realized I was supposed to. But it was intended to just be a series of questions. What are the best questions that we can ask each other to find out if we're a good match? It'd be like you and me, Paige. We go, okay, we really like each other and we've been dating different people and now we decide I don't want to date anybody else. I want to find out if this is the relationship, right? So there's this kind of tipping point that goes from kind of dating, maybe we'll see, to commitment. And the commitment is let's see, let's find out. People get to that point, what kind of questions can we give them to ask, right? So
Yes.
that they can really find out what they what's possible. And my goal was not to necessarily help two people absolutely determine whether they were a perfect match as much as help two people get to the point where they can celebrate one of two things. Either celebrate, oh my God, I'm glad we found this out now because this would have been a catastrophe, or celebrate, oh my God, we're so aligned. I couldn't be any more excited about building a future with you. One of those two things, but either way, be able to celebrate that, right?
Yeah, I feel like
And
I manifested your book, but just like 30 years later than I probably needed it. But I always say the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And so many people go into marriage not having asked the right questions. Like I often just say, I just didn't know what questions to ask when I was getting engaged and dating my ex-husband, like there were fundamental tell signs that that was probably not going to work out. I didn't have enough information, right? And so my sister found some books in random book that gave her a bunch of questions to ask, and they went through them before they got married. And I just thought it was, she's about 8 years younger than me, but I just watched her do it. Like, this is so brilliant. And I don't know, I've actually been looking for the book. Like, where did she find that book? Where's the book? But you've come up with someone. And one of the things that I love about you and me is when we see a relationship where they're thriving, and it's actually for me very rare that I see relationships that I'm like, you guys are rocking it. But when we do, and we're in a beautiful community where there's more and more of that, but we're just like, yes, like
yeah,
this,
celebrate,
it's
right? So
so
cool
exciting when they're
and
two women,
inspiring.
totally inspiring.
Right.
And this courageous intimacy that you talk about is so beautiful to witness and so inspiring and so like, oh, this is possible. And the more that people do your work and read your book, and the more people that know these principles, they're able to create that. And we're literally changing the world through relationships like that, I believe.
Hopefully, hopefully. So here's the thing that came up that also, thank you. I mean, question, yes, that our life is definitely the result of how we live our life has to do with the questions we ask without question. As I was looking at these questions, and I've been around them for 20 years because we went through all this questioning process, came up with series of questions to understand the quality of relationships back when research was being done on genetic energetics a long time ago. And and then I had clients like a decade ago came to me that surprised me. They weren't in trouble. They weren't having a hard time. They were new. And they came to me and said, Larry, we've both gone through a divorce. We don't want to do that again. What questions can we ask? Right. And it's like you looking for the questions, and your sister found a book on questions. So I went looking for them too and couldn't find much. Now there's more today than there was back then. But where I finally found really good questions wasn't where I expected them. I found them in church groups and synagogues, that it was the pastors and the rabbis that were dedicated to keeping the flock together. So they had the questions because they didn't want people to go into relationships that were going to fall apart. That doesn't help continue the religious practice of that group, right? I went, oh, okay, so who would be more committed to getting great questions? So I found questions. And then this book came along. And over the years, I started thinking about it and I went, you know what? I don't think it's the question. The question's important. But for two people, the biggest indicator right from the beginning is not the question itself, but it's how they ask the question and how they listen to the answer and how they respond to it that is a bigger indicator of anything. And then I stepped back, another step back to look at it and went, in fact, any book on questions by itself could be a catastrophe. It could have some things to help, but it's not enough. And so
Yeah.
lasting started out with 11 illuminations, and the illuminations are designed to set you up to really get great answers, not the wrong answers, not what you want the answers to be, but the real truth at the deepest level.
That's what
And
makes your book so unique and so different. It's not about like I can look up and ask ChatGPT for a bunch of questions to ask, but the whole way that you set it up and that focus on it's not about asking the right questions as much as getting the right answers. And that's such a amazing, powerful distinction. Love it.
thank you. Thank you. Uh, yeah, it was that was the piece that surprised me, by the way. I did not know I was going to write that next section. But what I ended up doing was bringing in everything that I've been teaching for probably 40 years. All of a sudden came in and went, here you have a chance to talk about it, including genetic energetics, because there's one of the illuminations is communication, right? Which is just one. I mean, people, there's enough people will say if you can't communicate, no relationship will work, period, which is probably true. And it's not everything. So this is why we started with the very first one, which is oh God, they're all my favorites. I was going to say it's my favorite, but I'm going to say it's foundational, which is curiosity. It's just having the child's mind, having a beginner's mind. And anytime that we go into a question looking for a specific answer, it's never the answer. Like whenever we look for proof, we ask questions all the time looking for proof. We just want to prove that what we think is accurate, or what we think you think is accurate, or what we think you should be doing, or you think you should be doing is accurate, right? We have this all kind of all planned out. Is that red? Let's figure out if it's really red kind of question. And
Our
when we
mutual
do
friends.
that, we
Yeah.
always find out it's not that.
Yeah. Our
It,
mutual friends, Gerald and Maya Rose, are so good at this. Like they've been married for years. They do this with their kids, but they just play the question game. And it's just asking, like, oh, what's the last food you ate? Like it's just random questions and they'll play it on the pickleball court, like whoever loses the rally or something. And you get to ask a question and they're funny sometimes and they're silly sometimes. And maybe when was were your feelings hurt last? But we just simply don't ask questions and we make an assumption. We lose the curiosity and we make assumptions. Oh, I know what they'd say. And I find I do that with people that I know and love so much is like, oh, I know what they want to eat, what they need, or what, like when they were last mad at me. Like I know, but we actually don't. And when you get into that curiosity, there's all of a sudden this vulnerability that can happen, but also just like, I just want to be feel seen in relationship, and I think that's the same with most people, if not everyone, is like this element of being seen. And when someone's curious about me, then I feel I get to share myself and I get to feel seen.
yeah, when they're really curious, right? So what I
Yeah.
say is we have to stop looking for proof and instead be surprised by the truth.
Love it.
And it's the surprise. It's not always a glorious surprise. Some of those surprises are not really what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear.
Yeah.
The key here, though, is that there's a surprise in the answer when you're not looking for a particular answer itself. So, I could ask you a question and you give me an answer. And then even if I stop there, that's a mistake because your first response is rarely ever going to be the real answer.
Yeah.
So I say to you, well, do you love skiing? Well, that's kind of for you, it's a yes, no question. So yes, no questions, you can throw those out, period, because anybody will answer yes or no and never get really emotionally involved in the answer. So I would say, how important is skiing to you? You tell me how important skiing is to you, but this is the fun part. Whatever you say, I want to go deeper.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'll ask you, how important is skiing to you, Paige? This is fun.
Well, it's a huge part of my life because I get to get into flow state when I do moguls, but also it's a way that, like, it's so much of who am I as a mom, and getting my kids into nature and being athletic and teaching them a skill that will benefit them the rest of their life, where they can just say yes when someone invites them. And so there's a lot of different like depths and parts about why I love skiing, but it's a big part of my life and I love it.
But a lot of people go, it's a huge part of my life.
I like it.
And that's it. Yeah, I like it. It's like I have to do it. And if I stop there, then I don't get to find out that it's about how she connects with her children. It's so much more, and there's still more. So here's the next question. After all of those things, I can go, oh my gosh, this is so cool because now when I think of you skiing, or if I ever go skiing with you, I know that all of these things are being fulfilled. How great is that? What I'm curious now with all of that, what does it do for you personally? How do you feel when all of those things are met?
Yeah, how do I feel when my kids are like up skiing and they're getting even better than I am, and we're having fun outside? It's just really fulfilling. Like, I'm proud of all that I've done. I'm proud of myself. I think that's how it feels.
Is there some like deep value that's getting met for you?
Yeah, immediately I think of connection with nature, but I think what that actually gives me is um like a connection with myself and a health. Like, health is a huge value to me.
Right. So
So,
there, I mean, this and so what I know now is that skiing's not just a play and it's not just to teach your kids, but it's also an affirmation or confirmation of your health and vitality, right? Would I be
yeah,
correct? Okay,
yeah,
so now look how much more we know. Instead of saying, do you like snow skiing or do you like snowboarding or do you like skiing, period, or do you like the mountains? Sure, yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay, yeah, but I don't know any of that. And here's the fun thing when we ask questions and we really want to know why, the why behind the answers, not only do we discover so much more about the person, in that process, we're discovering things about ourselves because as we listen, like I'm going, wow, I haven't skied for a while and I really miss nature. And and actually, I think I probably felt healthiest when I could take on any black diamond, right? That was probably my strongest, healthiest point in my life. And I can remember what that feels like. And I'm not there now and damn it, I need to get out on the mountain, right? So it's not just an answer that informs me of you, but informs me of me, right? So we both grow at the same time. And that, by the way, is co-creation happening.
Which I totally want to jump into. But before we do, based on the questions and the languaging, I know you're like a big language person, and in your quiz and the four questions tells you whether you're structural talking style or figurative talking style. And can you just touch on that? Like, when you're getting curious or when you're asking these questions, how does it differ when you're structural talking style or figurative? And if you're both, that seems like it would be ideal because then you just both almost speak the same language. But if
Right.
your partner or the person you're speaking to is the opposite, then how do you navigate that?
Okay. So it's like I have to ask you to change for a moment, or maybe I'll have to. So, for those of you listening, there are two different communication styles in genetic energetics. One is called structural, one is figurative. The structural, we pick our words to mean exactly what we want to say. And when someone talks to us, we interpret it kind of based on like on the dictionary definition of the word. You say to me skiing, it's got a couple different definitions. We could be water skiing or snow skiing. That's kind of what comes to my mind, right? So I may have to ask what kind of skiing you're talking about. For A figurative person, now, and by the way, Paige and I are both structural talking style. So we can yak all day long, and it's unlikely we'll ever have a misunderstanding. We could disagree about a lot of things, but misunderstandings are unlikely. So that makes that pretty easy. And energetically, it makes it pretty fun and it's kind of energy boosting. Now, the other is a figurative talking style person. And the figurative talking style person, it's not that words aren't important, but the emotion behind the words are more important. So I may ask them, and this is a long shot example I've never used before, but it's because skiing is what we've been talking about. I could say, do you love skiing? And the person thinks about it, and emotionally, they're thinking about, yeah, life to me is like skiing. It's a flow state. It's just this emotion I get when I cruise and how I have to navigate around things and the speed I go. I'm going, wow, that's not anything that I was thinking about that there, but for them, it's this huge, wonderful, glorious emotion of movement and flow that's happening. Well, I wouldn't know that unless I asked them, where did you go with that word? That because that everything I just described could all be internal,
Mhm.
right? And they may turn around actually and respond with, "Oh my God, I love the feeling." And I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I like the feeling. I like the black diamonds and the moguls and all that kind of stuff, but they're not speaking of the same kind of feeling. And here's the important part is that I really want to understand them and I want to see them and I want them to feel seen and heard. Well, if I'm doing that by my own interpretation of the words, I might miss it entirely. So there's an emotion behind their words that's really important. And and that helps me know the person better, discover them. And it comes back to being really feel seen and heard, right? And then for us, we may not express any emotion at all when we describe the mountains. Like we could, everything you described with your kids, I get it, I hear it. But a figurative talking style person might think, well, they're just talking. They're just talking. Where if I got you to really describe your kids, you might go, it is so amazing to me. I love it. I just love it to watch my kids get out on the snow and challenge themselves. And now you put all this emotion into it, and that figurative talking style person is going to go, "Oh gosh, that is great. Thank you for sharing that. I wish you would have said that originally." And in
And
your
this is
mind,
the
you go,
power. Yeah,
"Yeah,
like this is the power of knowing who you're talking to or understanding that it's just understanding if you're in Mexico, speak Spanish, And
yes,
you could be in a partnership where the communication patterns are opposite and you just feel like you're not getting each other. And then once you learn that language and you go, oh, I just need to speak to the emotion or I need to speak literally, and then the person gets me. And we just want to be able to get each other, right? Feel
yeah,
seen,
yeah."
feel
And
understood.
And you made a really good, I mean, you brought up a good analogy. So, if you're from Spain and you speak Spanish, and I'm from Germany, I speak German, right? And we meet each other and go, "Oh, we need to do this." And I say, "So, come live with me in Germany, right? But you come to Germany and want to speak Spanish, and you just want to speak Spanish, and you want me to speak Spanish, but it's not my native tongue, and no one else around is speaking Spanish. But you kind of go, well, but this is my language. I enjoy it." Right? Or vice versa. I come from Germany, I go to Spain, and I want to speak German. The reality is that we need to learn to speak each other's languages, but at the same time, not expect us to give up one language for the other. The German's my native tongue. Spanish is your native tongue. And I can watch you speak Spanish with your friends or your relatives, and it's igniting. It's incredible. And you can watch me with my German buddies, and it like, well, I think they're enjoying themselves. I can't tell, but they definitely are engaged, right? And the point is, can we embrace that difference? And can we acknowledge it and honor it? And what happens for a lot of us is we see the difference and we think, why can't you be like me? I want you to be like me. And we do this not just with subtle things like how we communicate, but we do this with colors. We do this with nationalities. We do this with cultures. We come up with all kinds of issues that we have with differences. And the reality is all these differences are magnificent. This is the full color plate of our world, right? And it's the rainbow of our lives. And for us to like just pick a color and want to stay in that narrow channel absolutely just cuts us off from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So
So
that's why labeling and differences are part of the illuminations. Because as soon as we do that, we limit ourselves to what we can experience. As soon as we ask a question looking to conclude or judge, we don't get to see or experience a fraction of what's possible.
I think it was Alison Armstrong that pointed out how we listen. Like we listen with the question, what's the point? What's the problem? What do they want from me? Like we're what are, how are they proving my point? We're listening with such an intention and end in mind that the lack of curiosity actually really limits us from understanding or experiencing the other person,
Yeah,
right?
we only hear what Allison is describing is accurate. It's what a lot of people do. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. We weren't born to conclude and judge. That's not how we showed up. We were born as seekers. We came into this world seekers and massively curious. What's the first thing we look for? Mother's milk, maybe, sustenance. So the beginning part of our life is sustenance. We need warmth, we need food, we need those things. But as we start to develop languages, as we are conditioned to respond a certain way, now we start doing what Alison Armstrong talks about. We look for specifics and we're not curious anymore. We're just trying to prove things. And as soon as that happens, the world collapses inward. And so do our emotions. And so do our neuroses. All of those things just they ignite in the wrong way, in a challenging way when they can be relieved so quickly. We can simplify complexity in a heartbeat just by being curious.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the human mind and how we evolve. We're basically the subconscious is basically running the show until we're 7 or 8 years old. And then it's almost like a critical faculty is built around the subconscious. And then there's a conscious and subconscious separation. And it's almost like that critical faculty is going, oh, does that go along with my worldview that I created as a child? Yes or no? Okay, we'll let that in and we'll keep out the rest. And so there's this kind of barrier that happens. And when we get into theta state, that barrier releases and we can access and in flow state. And when we're in a heightened a state of learning and those places when we can access subconscious and we can reprogram it, it's just when we're at
That's the
a
only
very
time we
high
can.
conscious mind state of and in a stress mode or alpha or beta, then that critical faculty is really quite strong, right? And it's in that judgment and that's it's almost like the ego is kind of like all around it. It's interesting.
It is, and the subconscious mind gets tainted very much so as well. So traumas, deeply held traumas, belief systems. We deal with it a lot in genetic energetics around sexual response type because the two different types, when one person misses the cue of the other partner, they may not know it. The partner might not know it at a conscious level, but at an other than conscious level, it's going, they missed my cue. I told them I was interested and they didn't respond. And that didn't feel very good. They were doing lots of other cool things, so I'm kind of okay with it. But internally, the sub other than conscious mind is going, they didn't get my cue. Do that again, do that again, do that again, all unintentionally. And now the subconscious mind's going, No, I'm not even going to get excited because it's no fun to get excited to be let down every time. So I'm going to stop this before it even gets started. And we see whole relationships fall apart because one partner was very excited at the beginning, very turned on at the beginning, and then over time, all of a sudden, they're not interested at all and they don't know why.
So what's the answer as far as the 11 principles? Which one kind of has the solution for that?
Um, hmm, None of them.
Oh,
Because I didn't, the 11 illuminations are really the baseline page. And we do have solutions for it, but it's not in this book.
so I like what I see is the like when I'm looking just and I'm kind of mixing the two up as your website and your book, but I've studied some of both. And when I look at co-creation, let's just look at co-creation for a minute, because that's like such a fun one. And when I see in the co-creation, there's the moderate active and the super active. And I'm not sure if there's others, but there's like the different energy levels for creation that we come into the world with. And so, what happens when you have a mismatch in energy levels and activity levels? And how do you co-create in that? But in general, let's geek out on
It's a
some
great
co-creation
question.
for a bit.
Yeah, so to look at what real co-creation is, it's a spark that becomes serendipitous. And so the speed that it comes in is less important than the spark that happens. So true co-creation and co-creation, the word gets thrown around a lot. Paige, like example, people will go, "Well, we co-created this house together." And the reality is, no, you might not have because one person decided they do the kitchen, the other one's going to do the garage, another one's going to do the landscaping, another one's going to do the bedrooms. And so they collaborated, right? The co-creative moment was the decision, let's find a house and do this together. There was that piece.
It may
But
have,
then
or one partner may have said, I found a house for us. And the other
right,
person said,
right.
that's not
All right, you go look for
co-creation.
the house, show me the houses, and then we'll get together and see if we agree on all of it, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with collaboration. It's critical, it's important. We have to do a lot of it in our lives. But the co-creation piece is when two people come together and they're together in the process. It's not like I'm going to go down the street and figure that out, and I'm going to go up the street and meet with my friend, and then I'll come back and we'll share our ideas. No, it's not like that. It's two people energetically together. Now, whether their energy vibrations are different, whether one's faster or slower doesn't matter as long as they choose to be with each other. Because in that, they're already accommodating for differences and finding a way to harmonize together. So they choose to be there, and then they make a decision, let's do X. And they don't know exactly what X looks like, but they choose to do it together. And something happens that is a creation that was unexpected. So I'll give you an example. This is like one of my favorites because it's happened so many times. I love to cook, right? And I love to create things and I love flowers and I love all that kind of stuff. It's fun for me. And if I have a partner that is somewhat similar or enjoys the creative process, let's say we went out to dinner on Saturday night. We had a great dinner, but we ordered too much food, so we had tons of leftovers, and we bring them home. And also Saturday, we went to the farmer's market. We bought all this fresh fruits and vegetables. So the refrigerator is full. And then we wake up Sunday morning and we roll over and we look at each other, and our normal Sunday is to go find new places to have brunch. That's our normal Sunday routine. But for whatever reason, this Sunday morning we go, you know what? Let's make breakfast. And they go, okay, we throw on our robes, we go downstairs and we start pulling things out of the refrigerator, all this stuff, the leftovers. We don't know what we're going to do, but we now have a counter of stuff. And we start to go, oh yeah, strawberries and the blueberries together. How about we have pancakes too? Now, pancakes weren't didn't come out of the refrigerator. We have to make those, but we have like leftover bacon and all this other food. And if you're vegetarians, I'm sorry, it's just the creative process here, right? But we just throw it together. We didn't plan a particular meal. We didn't go, I want eggs over easy. Can we make that? It wasn't like that. We went down and we let what was there be part of the discovery process. So we got curious without trying to prove anything. We just got curious together. And next thing we know, on the table is this plate of food that is absolutely beautiful. And we can sit down to eat and we go, no, wait, I go get some champagne and we put that on the table. And then we sit down again. And she goes, "No, wait." And she goes to grab the camera so she can take a picture of it. Anybody ever taken pictures of your food? Because you go, "Oh my God, look at that." And now we have a Kodak moment, which might date me considerably, but we have this moment that you never forget. And we have the next ingredient. So that's the serendipity piece. So we start two people together, we get creative, truly creative. And then the serendipitous thing happens, which is there's something before us that has value that was totally unexpected. So co-creation without serendipity is not co-creation. You got to have that. Then comes the celebration, this moment where you just go, it's just joyful, it's blissful. You have bliss, you have joy, and you have gratitude, all of those things going, ah, this is so great. You hold hands and then you go, let's eat, right? And you know that the meal in front of you, there's not a restaurant anywhere on the planet that could have created what you just created, anywhere. And then when you're done, the last ingredient of co-creation is to surrender and let it go. So you make room for the next one. And
Mm.
that's
Which
it's
is
that
part of the
simple.
message of joy and happiness is
Yeah,
to surrender, enjoy it, and let it go,
and
right?
let
We
it
can't
go.
try and hold on to it because then we lose it.
You lose it or you try to rebuild it and you can't recreate that moment,
Yeah.
right? The next moment might be close, might be similar, but it'll be different. And you want it that way. We want it that way. And so why is this important? Because if we're not co-creating with our beloved or with our family or in business, eventually we'll feel like something's missing because it is. And we're going to look for that experience and we'll find it elsewhere.
We were in a class together, and one of the assignments was write out the ways that you feel loved, right? And so I wrote it out, and Larry reached out to me and said, "Send it to me. What is your list?" And so I sent it, and I had co-creation on there, and he said, "Where on your list is it?" And I said, good question. I actually think it's at the top. I think there's like, physical affection and co-creation are my two things. And I looked at my last relationships and I realized that was what was really missing and what ended up making so I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. It was like I want to co-create a world, experiences, the future together. And if there isn't an invitation to that, then it's just such a fundamental need of mine. And I wasn't actually as clear about it until we kind of went into this, and I realized that that's it.
It was a huge realization for me when I finally got it. And
Yeah.
and it took a lot longer than I wished it had. But
So
it came from the end of a relationship and me trying to figure out what really happened. Like
yeah, because you're like,
what
wait, it had so much going for it. Like
yeah.
it's a wonderful human being. I am too. Like there was a lot of really good things, but ultimately it's like if we're not gonna create together, then I just my soul. So when you are this is like for what happens with I find that with men, they tend to be so focused on what they're creating, you know, and um how do we invite, like, since this is the feminine subconscious podcast, like, how do we invite more co-creation? And like, one of the painful parts that I experienced in my last relationship was like, and my last two relationships, was there wasn't like a planning into the future. And that may have just been we weren't a match or whatever it was, but it was like I was really wanting that. I was wanting the co-creation of something in the future. And so I'm just curious about that. Like, how do you, how
So you've
do you,
asked a couple different questions,
I
and they're
know I'm
both
not really even
really good,
clear what the
Paige.
question is
But
exactly, but
no,
help me.
they're
Help me,
both really
Larry.
good. You know, when it comes to partnership, if we don't have a mission and purpose that we share with each other, eventually the partnership is going to have a hard time succeeding over. It just will have a hard time of succeeding or being fulfilling, right? There has to be some place where we come together with our values, like really understanding our values. And we don't have to be totally aligned in our values, but to understand them so that we can embrace each other's values are important. There are some areas, depending on how we want to live our lives, that are really important. Like, Paige, I'm sure you would love a partner that wants to go out and get on the mountain with you, right? As opposed to a partner that says, look, you go get on the mountain. I'm going to Cabo so I can be in warm blue water. Now you might say, I like warm blue water too, but I got to have my mountain, right? And I really want it with you because I have my family and I've got all of these things attached to it, and you're my family, right? So it's an important ingredient. And if your partner never wants to be there, that can feel like too giving up too much, right? And and then for that person, you go, we can have this incredible loving friendship, but this partnership that we nurture and build together is this piece is too big a missing. And to acknowledge that is fine, right? To be able to acknowledge that is fine. They but if you have it together, if you understand it, you what might come out of it too is one of our things that we love to do every year is go up into the mountains and come up with our mission for the next year. What's our vision for 2025? We've been doing all this work. We do a lot of similar things together. What vision do we have for how we want to contribute to our future, to our legacy, to our family? And those pieces are really, really important. They're really important.
What I
So
hear
that's
you,
kind of the values piece of your question. Now, the
yeah.
co-creation piece for the women listening, you're right, Paige. Men get in the kind of do, build mode. That's what I did. That was the mistake I made. I had injured myself. And so what my partner and I used to do all the time was daily, we go out and walk and explore. It was constantly co-creative. Every day was like that. And it was really wonderful. Then I injured myself and I couldn't do that. And so it was like, do you want to go for a walk? More than anything, I wanted to go for a walk, but I couldn't do it. And so that piece was missing during a period of time, uh, almost too long a period of time, but it was missing. And at the same time, I was just totally engrossed in my business. So I'm building this business. It's my Dharma path. It's the most important thing to me. And I was doing that. I was building, I was providing, I was creating something that I thought was important. It filled me up, but it didn't do anything with her. Right. And this is the sneaky part about this, and it's not sneaky in a good way, it's sneaky in an unfortunate way, is that neither she nor I really understood what we had taken away from, or what I had taken away from us, because the co-creative things that we did together stopped. The it just that they stopped. And eventually for her, it's like, where's my partner? Where's this partnership? There's something really missing here, and not really knowing what it is. And all she has to do is go to a party and meet someone who's really curious and listening, and they have this incredible co-creative conversation. And next thing you know, she's going, that's what's missing. That's what I've been missing. And comparatively now, I don't, I don't, I don't make the mustard. I'm not, that and this is not the partner that's keeping her feeling alive and creative and juicy in this combination. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter if you don't have co-creative moments with your family, you will move apart from your family. If you don't have a co-creative moments in your business, in the work you're doing, you'll stick around a long time if the money's really good and if it's the money you need, but you'll hate the job. You'll go, I'm bored. I just don't feel like I'm adding any value. This is not, there's no meaning here.
Yeah.
And you don't get up in the morning excited to go to work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the relationship is without that co-creation, we have to nourish it. So what do women do? Invite your partner into those things. Just know that we need to do something juicy and fun together. And if your partner is not doing that, then you need to hit him over the head with a hammer.
You know what I keep
It's
hearing?
like this is like you have permission to let him know or let her know what's missing. We need to do this. I had a client come to me recently and say, and I'm doing this kind of beginning discovering in this discovery session with them. And I asked them, when's the last time you guys co-created anything together? And then I had to describe what co-creation meant. And they thought about it and they went, about a year ago. And then they said, is how often should we be doing this? And I said, daily would be nice. And it would be nice, but that's not necessarily realistic. But I said, as often as possible. Right. And I knew right there that there's a long ways back for them to restore or find that connection again when it's been that far apart for that long.
Yeah. And what I keep hearing is that it takes effort, it takes intentionality, it takes like your book is a tool to actually get uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable. It's like affirmations. They're geeky, they're weird. It's bizarre to tell yourself things in the mirror or to repeat things. It's also maybe uncomfortable to have weekly planning sessions and ask someone to co-create or ask funny silly questions to someone. But do you want to be cool and comfortable and have a bad relationship, or do you want to be awkward and get uncomfortable a little bit and have a fly high, soul filling, incredible relationship, right? And I see how I could do this with my VA, let alone with my children, and let alone in a partnership, right? It applies to every kind of relationship where it being intentional with this co-creation, with this communication, with this curiosity, and actually getting uncomfortable, like building grit. Like it's awkward maybe, but it's okay. It's okay to be awkward because the relationships that we're seeing, that I'm seeing, that are flying, they intentionally have a weekly meeting where they're going through planning, touching base, asking for wins, talking about what didn't work and did work, those kind of things,
They're courageous.
asking the questions. And they're intentionally creating experiences where they can connect, communicate, and co-create together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely are. And they're courageous. And
It
that
is
fits into with
courageous.
what you're saying, because when something's bumpy, we don't want it bumpy. It doesn't feel very good. How do we soften this over?
Yeah.
But if it keeps pushing at us, it's basically saying, yeah, yeah, I'm here. You don't get to ignore me. No, 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 no. Right. So we need to courageously jump into it, even if it scares the bejesus out of us.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, that's when it's more important to step in than any other time. And it's also usually when we find that all our fears, especially with our beloveds, are unfounded. The things that
Mhm.
we're this most frightened of. They'll leave me, they're going to be angry at me, all these different things. If we just come out and share what's our truth without trying to make anybody wrong, without we can look at ourselves and say, I made this mistake, I'm seeing it clearly, but without pointing fingers or needing some kind of retribution, just getting it out we're going to find that we're embraced in ways that we didn't even know were possible.
It
Truly,
takes
that'll
so
happen.
much courage and so much of letting go of what our assumptions are. And like I tend to talk myself out of sharing and asking for things, time, whatever it is. I will literally talk myself out of it almost every time until I get coaching or at least after 30 years of trying at this, like I'm figuring some of it out, but it's really difficult for me. I'll hear whatever part that is that's saying they won't want to listen, or they'll tell you that it doesn't matter, or it's, they're probably going to say this anyway, so you may as well not get uncomfortable in the conversation, vulnerable, actually ask for what you want. Just let them, let them, and let them's kind of I'm really good at that. I'm just not good at actually getting into that courageous, brave place of being real and sharing yourself and yeah, being honest.
So when you build a relationship manifesto, when you describe your ideal partner, it's got to be someone that knows how to discover or see you when you're feeling more reserved,
Mm,
right? That
yeah.
you feel the most comfortable with than with anybody else in the world to just reveal yourself because they'll hear you, they'll see you, and they'll ask questions if they don't understand.
Yeah, and I wonder if just giving them the codes, like, hey, when I'm withdrawing, ask me one of these three questions or something, maybe
Absolutely.
just so that
Absolutely.
I'm given, and we can teach each other how to support us, right? But my partner can't know that until I give him the questions, and then I can go, it's that barrier where I'm just, if I can just be given permission, then I can open up, and he wants to know me and he wants to love me even deeper and to give me what I need, right? Just like I want to
And
give
what
him
you're
what he
talking
needs.
about now, Paige, is so important. It's so important. There's a propensity for us to think that our partner should understand and know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I mean, it would be nice if they could read your mind. Maybe it wouldn't be so nice if they could read your mind all the time, but it would be nice if they knew what to do. And how could we expect someone to know that unless you tell them? When this happens to me, I kind of go inside, and if you see me retreat or not be as responsive, will you, here's my safe word, banana or whatever. Come, please come find me. You have an invitation. Come find me. And as a partner, I might go, what does that look like? Is that, you might throw something at me. You might go, get the hell away from me. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. How do you, help me understand how I can even get through that when you're in that place? What do you really need? Most men don't understand that more than anything, they need to just listen and shut up. They really need to not try and fix everything and just let their partner talk.
Yeah.
And when that partner's done talking, ask them, is there anything else?
Right. Yeah.
And
Which
and
is like the
then
hardest thing ever because you're like,
yeah,
just
and
let
don't
them.
jump in and start fixing it. Is there anything else? And the second time they're done talking, again go, are you done? Is there anything else? Unless you've gotten to that third stage, you open your yap too soon, right?
Yeah. One of
That's hard for a man. It's really
immediately when
hard for us to
you
understand.
you asked for the code, I'm like, oh, I just want you to come hold me. But actually, if I'm really upset, don't touch me.
Yeah, you don't want to be held.
So
Just listen
yeah,
to me. Yeah.
I don't just like listen and know that will come out better on the other side. But I may say some things that like I don't know quite how to say gently. And so
Yeah.
I'll often talk myself out of saying it because I can't say it in a way that's going to be gentle and loving and kind. And so I just won't go there until I calm myself down and talk myself through it and maybe go and get some coaching somewhere else. And then I come back in, and that person has completely lost the opportunity to learn from what happened, like I did. Right. And they don't know me any better.
No, that's right. They
They
don't.
actually know me
And
worse
that's
because I just came
and that
back and acted like it
runaway
was all
move,
okay.
that runaway move to go find a coach and go get that help like that. This isn't to put coaches down. I mean, there are times when we absolutely need them, but that runaway move is can be disastrous on both in the short run and the long run for exactly the reason you just said. You go and get the answers, but your partner had no opportunity to see you go through it or discover it. And I mean, the solution there is you come back and you really need to share it, and the partner needs to be willing to listen. Like, thank you for doing that because I knew I could not have talked you down from that cliff. And I'm glad someone did. Now will you share with me what happened? I really want to understand it so I can be here and support you better next time. That's what needs to happen. And then listen, just listen. We used to do, done this a couple times, more than a couple times actually. But in the business world, there's people that get really angry and upset, and they won't tell anyone why they're upset. They just all of a sudden there's two people that can't work with each other, right?
Yeah.
And so we would take those two people, and it might be you and me that are the two people, right? And I know there's an issue, and we sit down, and this is the way that it works. You get to talk for 10 minutes and tell me what's going on. Now, 10 minutes is not a short period of time for one person to talk. And I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to say a word. I might nod, but I'm not, just going to let you talk. And you might go, well, what I have to say, I don't think I have 10 minutes to say. I probably can say all this in 30 seconds. Okay. But you have 10 minutes. And what ends up happening is that 30-second spurt ends up easily being 10 minutes. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, the other person now gets to talk, right? And now you've switched roles. One listens, the other talks. By the time you're done, without question, both people have discovered things that they didn't know they were doing or they didn't know the other person was experiencing. And they are now at the end of their 20 minutes working on solutions and coming up with new agreements, not boundaries, but agreements about how to move forward.
It's like the ancient tradition of the talking stick,
It
right?
is very
It,
much that.
yeah, and it works. Like just let someone talk without interrupting, which is um so difficult when someone's
Yeah.
saying something when it's like, one
Well,
of the
especially if
tricks.
it's a hot moment, and I mean not hot like exciting hot, but hot like
No, when
seriously
and
challenging
even
hot.
when someone's heated, they're saying things that, like, to me, I've been in situations like that, and my brain is going, "This is insane." Like everything they're saying is complete bunk. Like, and I can be in that experience and still let them talk, not interrupting them. And what my trick is what if my heart, what if my face was full of compassion and love, even though my brain is going, this is BS. Like I'm so like totally going insane. And by the time I listened to them all the way through, I have learned something without interrupting, with letting their nervous system calm down and letting them get out what they needed to get out. And I don't know which talking style needs to, like, there's external processors and internal processors where I I'm more of an internal processor. And so when someone starts going on and on about something that they actually don't even understand themselves, it's like a little bit crazy making. But if I'll be quiet, not judge, and just let them have that space, by the end they've processed it and they come back to logic and neutral and understanding and curiosity with
Well, they
me.
start listening at 10 minutes. People are, you get past a few minutes and people start listening to themselves.
Yes.
And then they go, is this making sense?
Oh wait.
And then between the two different communication styles, so there's another piece that we added that I didn't do originally before I understood genetic energetics. Now that I know the different communication styles, at the end of the 10 minutes, the person can say, I heard you say this, and I want to make sure I understand you. Is this what you meant when you used this word? Or can you explain to me, what this meant? It's basically you're feeding it back and getting clarity
Yeah.
just to make sure that you're clear you understood what they said. And then they'll go, well, no, that's not at all what I meant. What I said is this. And you go, wow, I'm so glad I asked you. So you get that clarity, and then the other person says, thank you, and then they share. Right.
Yeah. That reflective
So
listening and
it's really
augmentative.
between the two different communication styles. We have to do that often is check in and go, what I think I heard you say, is this correct? And this is part of NVC, nonviolent communication. It's one of its tools. It's a really great tool, but it's just a check-in to make sure that what the person said is really how you interpreted it. Because between the two communication styles, there's a high likelihood there's misunderstandings.
Yeah. That code word, what I heard you say is, and what's
Mhm.
so fascinating is how often you're wrong.
Yeah,
You know, they're
yeah,
like, yeah, or it invites them to clarify and add to it to say, yes, and I forgot to say this, which adds so much clarification. So,
right. And then you get clarity again, right? And it might sound like a lot of work, but boy, for your beloved, is it worth it? Hello. You made a commitment to this person before you think of anything else other than trying to figure out how to find the connection and the humanity and the care and the kindness in your relationship before you go anywhere else. Go to find that. Go into that discovery mode before you consider any other options. As soon as you consider an option, and this is important for anybody to know about relationships, and I got this from Tony Robbins years ago, actually. It was in a program he called reality bridging that interestingly enough, he's never done since he taught it to this kind of a group of master trainers. And the whole concept is that if you look at a relationship and things aren't going well and you threaten it, you do that again and I'm leaving. You've just ended the relationship. You literally have ended it. Because the moment you consider that you can walk out the door, you have walked out the door.
okay. So, this is the last rabbit hole I want to go down with you because that's
Okay.
the perfect intro. So, I am so curious about this because there's kind of two models of thought. There's like the Annie Lala, who has a whole group of women with Evan Pagan. They do a mastermind where they have everyone stand up and they say, I commit to you for the rest of my life forever. I am like to their partner, they say, I commit to you forever. And they say those words. In the culture that I grew up, it was like, I commit to you for eternity. It's like an eternal bond, a covenant that you're making. And then there's other groups of thought that are like, I'm going to commit to you for the next 6 months, or I'm going to commit to you for the next year. And then there's some that just, don't commit at all. Right. So there's this whole scale that I'm watching and going, okay, my maybe programming, belief, desire, heart's desire, maybe genetics says, I want to get remarried. Right. But what does that look like? Like to me, it's I want to build a world with someone and I want to be with them until for the rest of my life. I want this entire I want it to be long term, and the co-creation is not just for this one moment, but for like what we're creating in 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. Right. So that's for me, like whatever it is in me that wants that. And yet I see so many people that are saying, I just want a short-term relationship, or I just want to have a like life partner, or not even maybe just a long-term relationship, maybe a few years at a time for the rest of my life. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on those philosophies and where you land.
The short answer is find the person that wants the same thing you want.
That's such a good answer because my definition of a good relationship is just whether it's a business partner, a family member, like a partner of a life partner, it's just you want the same things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's
And when it
really
comes
as
to,
simple as it gets is it's a good relationship if you both want the same things, right?
yeah, yeah. And if you both are, if you're both willing to make a solid commitment and your goal is not till just next week, but it's for as long as we can possibly do this and do this well and where it's healthy and supportive and joyful and glorious for both of us, right? And if that is a lifetime, that will be a huge gift. If it's not, then it's we're going to find it out by attempting to do everything possible to discover if it's possible or to discover if that's the direction we can go first, right?
Mm,
Because I think that, there are some partnerships that last a lifetime, and there's some that last a season. And we don't necessarily know what they are, but whatever they are, I think the commitment needs to be solid and it needs to be uniform. If you say, well, I'm in for it for 6 months, and I go, well, I'm into it for the rest of my life, we're already mismatched. We're already mismatched. And I do a lot of coaching and counseling in the non-monogamy world. Um, and I'm not non-monogamous, interestingly enough. Tried it. I've experimented with it. I've taught in that space, and I understand it really well. And I understand it really well to know that that's not me,
yeah.
right? That's not what I want in a relationship. And what I do know is that people that enter into that space, though, the ones that do it really consciously, they are so determined to make sure their communications are clear. It's clarity and alignment that allows that to work. It's no different if you're monogamous. We need to have clarity and alignment there too.
Yeah, one of my good friends is a non-monogamy coach, and she is trained in the Gottman theory, and she taught a class, and I was like, "This is amazing! Like, it's so applicable to monogamy and
Yes.
to marriage and to the type of relationship that I want." And in non-monogamy, there's such a pressure to use the principles because otherwise, like from my experience and I mean from what I've seen in that world, it blows up in your face if you're not very, very intentional. Whereas monogamy, there's a lot wider of
There's
a
a lot of assumptions. In monogamy, there's all these assumptions that we're going to do things a certain way, that this is the way we were raised and this is the way it should be, right? So there's a ton of shoulds. We get
yeah,
should all over the place. But yeah, and that's the downfall.
yeah.
We need that kind of clarity. We need to be that devoted to be that clear. Paige, it's so wild when I work with couples that are a little shy or having challenges around their sexual relationship. I will ask them if they have any experience with BDSM.
Mm,
And they'll go, well, why? And I said, because I want to send you to a class, maybe a Shibari class or some class in that area. And they said, well, we're not interested. I went, I didn't say I wanted you to be interested in it. I want you to see the level of communication and responsibility that is taken in that space. And we, as human beings wanting to intimately engage with each other, owe ourselves and each other that level of responsibility and ability to listen and ask for those things that we know that we like or don't like. And we're not taught that.
yeah,
Yet, this particular world, the BDSM world, they have to do it or it doesn't work. Someone gets hurt, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, in our world, we just get hurt emotionally
yeah,
or worse, right?
yeah.
So go take a class.
Right,
And if you get into it, that's not my business, but
right.
the key reason for going there is to learn some new skills, vocabulary skills, communication skills, that are essential for advanced intimacy.
Yeah, and I love that is what you said is advanced intimacy. It's you can have I know a lot of people that have been married their whole lives, but was there advanced intimacy? Was there courageous intimacy? Was there soul-filling love? And if not, then yeah,
Yeah.
diving into these things and learning these things, learning about yourself, learning about the other person, learning different skills is the key. And so I just love it so much. We could go on all day. Is there anything else that you just wanted to
We'll
touch
just have to
on?
continue this. We'll do it
I
some more.
know.
Get the folks that are following you to ask questions, and let's just, let's do a question and answer thing. Let's whatever you want, Paige.
Yeah.
I so enjoy doing this with you. It's really fun.
It's so fun. So send in your questions and look up Lasting. It's on, where is it? Amazon, Larry? Is it
It's
on
not
Amazon?
yet.
Not
We're in a
yet.
pre-order. This is fun. This is interesting. So for those people listening, how soon will people be hearing this?
Um, Probably in like I'm actually, ooh, I may get it up by next week for sure.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple links. All right.
Okay.
And one of them is to a page. It's called Publicizer. It's a pre-order page. And so you have an opportunity to order the book. You can order the book, and there's all kinds of fun things that you could order with it if you want, all the way up to a 5 day, 5 night, glorious retreat in Cabo with a five-star chef. But or you can get just the book. But whatever you order, those people ordering the book right now are going to have an opportunity to attend a 5 week virtual retreat that I'm going to be doing. And I'm doing it as a gift.
Oh,
And this is a retreat that is going to be $1,500 in the future. And it's virtual. So it's 5 weeks. It's going through the entire illuminations. You get the book, you'll get the digital copy of the book, you'll get all kinds of fun things to go with it, all for just pre-ordering the book.
that's amazing.
So
I'm signed up. Join me in it. And the links will be below. And so you can pre-register, you can get involved in that 5 week retreat. Larry, it's such a treat. I just love you. I love
thank
talking with
you.
you all the time. And I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and continue to subscribe, like, and share. So
Well, I
thank you.
have one other gift.
Oh,
I have one
good.
other gift, which is the personal energetic profile.
Yes,
So I'm also going to provide a link so people can go do that and find out what your energetic profile is. And that's a
definitely do
free
that.
gift. That's a free gift as well. And yes, Paige, thank you so much. It's so good.
Yay.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Bye-bye.